These tips will be going over mechanics for every single tier in Multiversus Ranked and how you can improve as a player. One of the hardest things about Multiversus is sometimes you can be punished over and over and you don't know the problem in your playstyle that's causing that. And as a rank 14 Masters Marvin, I feel I have great tips to share with you all. For starters, learn your character and their bread and butter combos. I'm grouping Unranked, Bronze, and Silver in the same category because they all share common habits, so what works in Bronze will also work in Silver. Now, what do I mean by bread and butter? These are combos that you can easily repeat, that you can do at no matter what percent, and you can get some guaranteed damage off of it. So, I play Marvin, so for example, jab into side special in the air. That will combo at pretty much any percent, and I will always get something out of it. And very important reminder, not every combo needs to be a 0 to death big explosion of damage. You don't need to do all that. A lot of times you just want to get your damage so that you can get stage control, because that is going to cover another aspect, which is your neutral game. Having stage control means that you are taking advantage in neutral. Now you may be like, Nodzok, I just started playing. What do all these words mean? Ah! And okay, relax. I will explain them to you in due time. But what's important for this tier is you need to get your bread and butter combos and you don't need to overextend, meaning trying to land hits that are not guaranteed follow-ups or aren't safe enough to throw out that would most likely get you a hit. Because you want to get stage control, because that will lead you up into getting even more attacks and damage as you see your opponent trying to dodge in to get back to stage. You can think of this as playing basketball. You have the basketball, so immediately you have the advantage, and you're trying to do your bread and butter dribble combos so that you can get closer to the basket. So things like your Euro step, your 1-2, I don't play basketball, but keep center stage control so when you do your bread and butter combos, you knock your opponents away to make them come back to you so you can find more opportunities to land even more hits. Another great mechanic to learn right now is dodge canceling. What is dodge canceling? Have you ever seen when opponents would suddenly close the distance on you, they would close the gap? That's because they're dodging with their attack. So in this game, whenever you want to attack, you can mix in a dodge to the direction you want to go and attack at the same time. And you'll carry the momentum you would have had with your dodge into your attack. To do this, very simple. Simply dodge left or right based on wherever you want to go and attack at the same time. You can also do this if you hold up and you attack, hold down and you attack, in any direction. This is omnidirectional, and you can even do it in the air. It's a great technique that you need to master if you want to start to rank up. But keep in mind, this is using a third of your dodge meter, so if you do this 3 times and you don't land attacks, you will go on what's called burnout, where you don't have any dodge meter and you won't get invincibility frames when you dodge. And finally, try not to go off stage when you're edge guarding. Now, if you don't know what edge guarding is, that's pretty much staying at the edge and keeping your opponent away so that you can get your KO, which is pretty similar to the bread and butter point that I made earlier. This goes hand in hand. You don't want to give up stage control, especially this early in your ranked grinding journey, because I don't want you to develop bad habits right now. I will be expanding on this point later as you rank up, but for right now, stay on the stage and just try to react to what the opponent is trying to do to get back. You'll notice that you not only win more interactions, you not only stay on stage more and keep stage control, but you'll be getting a lot more kills and you don't have to do nearly as much effort compared to going off stage. You can practice this in training by setting the AI's command to recovery and just knock them off stage and try to react to how they recover. Master these 4 basic principles and you will get out of bronze, silver, or unranked in no time. For gold, my fellas in gold, the first tip I have for you is learn to dodge jump. If you already learned how to do this, great, but this is building off of what I mentioned in bronze and silver. When you're dodging and attacking, or known as dodge canceling, you can do the same thing with a jump. It uses up half of your dodge meter, so be very cautious when you decide to use this, but it gives you a great advantage in repositioning back to the stage very quickly. You can use this offensively if you want to reach the opponent even quicker, or if you're off stage and you want to get back really quickly and subvert your opponent's expectations, you can just dodge jump, use half your meter, and you're already back to pretty much the center of the stage. You can jump all the way over them like Kobe did to every person who tried to guard him when he was dunking. It's not fun. They had no hope. Another thing you want to be aware of is your dodging habits. I noticed a lot of people tend to dodge in when they get hit, and the second group of people, they tend to dodge out. So it's not a problem doing these dodges. What is a problem is when that's the only dodge you do every time you get hit. So you want to be aware of how you're dodging and mix it up. For example, you can dodge up if a person hits you so that you can avoid their next attack, or you can dodge down to get closer to the stage. But varying and mixing up where you're dodging will help you a lot in terms of getting comboed less and creating opportunities for you to attack your opponent more. Me knowing he dodges in when he gets hit, I use that knowledge to back up and already line myself with where he was going to end up after he dodged. So this is what I mean of being aware of your dodging habits and mixing them up so you don't get clipped like this. Throw out combo starters in neutral. Look to throw out combo starters in neutral and don't just throw out any move if it's not going to lead into something. This will make your opponent respect your pressure, and it forces them to respect your moves, since landing one will net you big damage every time you do them since you've been practicing your combos. This also trickles down to making your feints more effective, because your opponent will have something to fear about you landing a hit. And I actually learned this when I was in boxing, when a person told me who watched my fight, if I want to feint more and make them more effective, I need to land my bread and butters, or my 1-2-3s, because only through that will the opponent have something to fear, and that is what gets your feints to be more effective. So land your combos and throw those out in neutral. The next tip, practice patience. There's not tech but movement option, you could say, called dash dancing. And this ties in with the feints I just mentioned because it's a little hard to gauge what you're going to do if you're just moving back and forth. You can use that to set up your opponent to make them think that you're in range to get hit, but just as they throw out an attack is when you dash back, and now you have an opportunity to punish them. It's also a great way to just move around and see what your opponent's doing. You're testing the waters. So you should get used to doing this and not throwing out moves so often. Sometimes it's good to just slow the game down a bit and allow yourself time to plan what your next course of action is. And lastly, use your dodge meter for offense. Manage your meter, but don't go on burnout, because a lot of people I've seen, it's like when they realize that they can dodge cancel, that's the only thing that they do, and that's not the point of it, because you're gonna go on what's called burnout, where you don't have any more invincibility frames for your dodges, and people can do true combos on you that can kill you at 0. I do this to people all the time. Please manage and don't go on burnout, aka no options, which if you want to, I have a channel membership for $1.99. You can get this emoji and these 3, as well as coaching. If you can support, I'd appreciate it a lot. For my platinum ranked viewers, learn to edgeguard effectively. So something that I don't see a lot of people talk about is, yes, when you're next to the stage or when you're next to the ledge, you can begin your edgeguard when your opponent is off stage. We already know that. But something that is not talked about a lot is you just being at the ledge counts as edgeguarding, meaning you don't have to throw out any attacks, and your presence simply being there is enough to make your opponent reconsider. Say for example, you are a robber who wants to rob a bank, and you see a police car next to the bank. There could be no police in that car, but the mere fact that the car is there makes you reconsider how you're going to go about robbing that bank. Same is true for edgeguarding. You don't need to throw out moves all the time when you're at the ledge. Simply just being there and you dash dancing, which I talked about in the previous ranked tier, is enough to make your opponent reconsider how they're going to get back to stage. So use that to your advantage and begin to go off stage to land more effective edgeguards. Now, if you've been watching this from bronze up until this point, which you should because this is all cumulative, then this might mess with what I just said and be counterintuitive, but now that you have better game sense and better game knowledge about how your character works, how the game works, and the game states in neutral, going off stage to land more effective edgeguards is very effective when you want to land kills, especially if you're down a stock and you want to make the game more even again. You're going to want to go off stage to land those deep edgeguards. The next thing, be comfortable with being off stage. I see a lot of people tend to panic, especially when they get down aired once. They just dodge up and then jump and then they just use all their options, and I'm like, bro, relax, you like calm down. Remember, you have 1 jump, 2 dodges, and 2 recoveries. So make mental notes when you're off stage so you can be more intentional while you're recovering. It's not a race to get to the stage first, it's just getting to the stage more effectively. you reaching this stage with more intention so that when you get there, you can set yourself up in a position to punish your opponent and vice versa. Now I will give you guys the arcane knowledge. Learn how to IAD. Pretty much that's when you can do your aerials as low to the ground as possible. I'm sure you guys have seen it and you've probably been wondering how people do it. It's very simple. All you do is turn your control stick to the top right or top left, whichever direction you want to go, and dodge and do an attack. You'll notice that your character does an aerial very low to the ground. It's almost like they're glued to the ground. Why is this useful? Well, if you're at ledge and you want to land a down air, but you know that jumping and then using your down air would take too long, you can do an IAD off of the ledge and you do a super low down air that can hit your opponent quicker than if you were to jump. You can also do certain combo routes that are only possible by doing IAD. Like for example, Samurai Jack, jab into IAD up air, leads into a dodge read on his nair, which sets him up for a lot more follow-up opportunities compared to just completing his whole jab string. So learning IADs will make you much more of a competent and creative player that can string a lot of attacks into themselves, string a lot of attacks into other moves that other people normally wouldn't be able to do just because you learned this one tech. I'm telling you this now because in Platinum, you have enough game sense to begin to make your own combos, so it's really good to get this and learn this now, so by the time you reach Masters, you would have already been doing IADs to the point where you have some of your own custom combos. Lastly, you'll want to learn how to tomahawk. It's a movement option and it's pretty simple. It's basically doing an empty jump without you doing nothing. Shocking, I know, but it's effective. You can feint that you're about to do something, but you're actually just doing an empty jump. So you'll be able to punish your opponent if they react to that feint. Something else you'll want to learn is how to properly read. You can practice this in training by setting the opponent to dodge randomly after hits done, and just practice reading them. It is so helpful because a lot of these reads is what you'll be landing when you go in game, so practicing this now will make you a beast by the time you get to Diamond and Masters. And if you didn't know, because you get 2 dodges in the air, if you read both of their dodges, it's considered them being on burnout because they cannot dodge anymore. They literally cannot dodge. So push them. Use your burnout combos that you've hopefully developed through this training to kill them as quickly as possible. For my Diamond brothers watching the video, number 1, do not always follow up on combo strings, or what I like to call wait and punish. You can reset to neutral after you do a combo string and see where your opponent's gonna dodge. So that way, if you land a correct read, you get even more damage, but if you have a bad read, you'll only go back to neutral since you were in advantage state anyway, since you were the one comboing them. The number 1 thing I see people do is they try to extend and overextend their combos way too much to where you know it's not about to connect and your opponent actually gets advantage because you overextended and put yourself in a compromising position to get punished. Great example, see how my Marvin, I do jab, side special in the air, and immediately I follow that up with an up air that's aimed at their direction. And if they don't dodge, then I get an up air string so that I can follow them up with more pressure and look to land more reads. If they dodge away, no harm, no foul. I didn't do anything that put myself in a compromising position, so I can just follow up with them and we're back in neutral again. Compared to me trying to follow that combo up, knowing that it wouldn't be true, whatever I would do, that's what I'm talking about of waiting and punishing. You don't need to follow up every single combo string and try to be aggressive in offense. Just chill and relax, like take it a step back and just see what your opponent's gonna do. That will make you a much smarter player trying to predict and make correct reads as opposed to just throwing things out. Next word of advice, mix up your landings and disadvantage. When an opponent hits you up and you're trying to land to stage, I notice a lot of people tend to, again, dodge in. Makes sense, right? You're trying to get back to stage as quickly as possible. But if your opponent begins to read that, now you're in some trouble. So now you're about to get packed up. While you're landing, see where your enemy has been reading you and go in the opposite direction. So for example, a lot of times when I'm on the ledge, I like to jump up, see what the opponent is gonna do, and then I actually go back down to the wall. Because I know that if my opponent tries to pressure me, I always have my up air to shoot at them, which is going to knock them back and punish them for trying to hit me. So I use this to gain data, see how my opponent thinks, and then get back to stage accordingly. Or if I'm up in the air, I like to use my recovery and use my aerial options, which I mentioned in Platinum, to throw off their timing. So you can do one jump and then try to dodge in and then recover. You could also do a recovery to air stall and then see what your opponent tries to do and react to that so you can dodge through them and get back to stage. A lot of different ways, but the number one thing that comes with that is, again, knowing your aerial options and being patient when you're in disadvantage. People are way too hasty making decisions in this game. I see it all the freaking time. Like, guys, please just relax and slow down. The game is not going anywhere. You don't have to play that fast. And it helps too when you slow down, because you'll begin to process and see your own habits, so you can correct them mid-game, and that's what makes a great player. Not someone who just knows the 0 to death on Finn or Powerpuff Girls. I promise you, you don't know what you're doing. Which actually leads into my next point: observe your habits and correct them mid-game. It's a hard skill, especially introducing it to you guys in Diamond, but trust me when I say, if you can be aware of what you're doing now, you'll reach Masters and Grandmasters in no time. Because a lot of people don't see why they're losing, and even less people don't see why they're losing mid-game. So if you can pay attention to, oh, I noticed I dodged in there and I got red, let me not do that again. And then you dodge out. Now you're throwing your opponent off, you see that it worked, and now you can repeat that until your opponent begins to react to that. And that's what makes a meta game mid-match. You're making the meta mid-game of what is the most effective to do on the opponent. Whatever works on them is the best course of action for you in that game, which is also why it's important to understand the matchup. For example, if I'm playing against a Jason main, I know that I need to zone more as Marvin because Jason can't really deal with projectiles. Playing against a Harley, I can be more aggressive because I know that Harley kind of suffocates if she gets red a lot. And it's not the character, I'm more so talking about the players who play her. I just know the general mentality of them. So that's what I mean by know the matchup. Know the matchup, but more importantly, know the mindset of the people who play that character, because a lot of people do the same thing. That's what I mean. A lot of people don't like to change. A lot of people are scared to change, are resistant to change. It's reflected in their real life, and as a result, it's reflected in the game. If you can be adaptive and understand that I need to change mid-game, do that and you'll win. Same thing with real life. If you see a habit that you have is not conducive to your growth, you need to see your habits and change them so you can have more favorable outcomes for yourself. And lastly, practice aggressive neutral game. When I mentioned dash dancing in gold, this is a higher tier of it, because if you can go next to your opponent and dash dance looking to get an opening, it's like a boxer bobbing and weaving trying to make an opening on you. They're not necessarily throwing out attacks, but you know that they're looking for an attack, and that thought alone, them being there, creates pressure, which sets you up to win neutral more often. For my master players, and especially my master Marvins, there's 7 of us. I just got here last season. Thank you, I enjoy my stay. For masters, there's not really mechanics at this point. This is the threshold where you know you've gotten to a certain skill level and you're good enough to where you can start to beat top players. But I will say, perfect neutral. Anything past this point is perfecting neutral. At this point, you should know how to IAD, you should know how to do aggressive neutral, you should know how to effectively ledge guard, when to go off stage, when not to. All these things is what you've been building up for this whole time that got you to masters. So the last thing is perfecting your neutral. Attack your enemies to see their dodge habits, take mental notes on them mid-game, and punish them accordingly. Sooner or later, your opponent will panic due to them being red all the time. It does mental damage, it's true. Have you ever fought someone where it's like, damn, I really just cannot beat this guy. I don't know what to do. It seems like everything I do, they punish. That's what separates pros from people who are just good at the game. They do these things, they see your habits, they punish them accordingly, and then they go above and beyond and make it so where it feels like you cannot do anything in the matchup. That's what I'm trying to help you guys get to, and that's where I'm trying to go myself. So punish them accordingly, play neutral as perfectly as you can, make little to no errors, because those errors other masters are going to be seeing them, and they will definitely be adapting, taking mental notes, and punishing you on them. This will help you to break into Grandmasters. For my Grandmaster players, the top 100, welcome to the video. Thank you for watching. I will say at this point, like I mentioned in Masters, you're even better than a Masters because you got to top 100, so congrats first of all, but still, perfecting your neutral and maximizing your punish game. At this point, you should have free-flowing combos that you can get off of any stray hit. You should know your burnout combos that you can do that will guarantee a 0 to death. So at this point, all it is being even better at reading, being even better at understanding and studying your opponent mid-game, and punishing them effectively. Punishing them as hard as possible to begin to do mental damage to them. That is the one thing I see pros do a lot that separates them from just the great players. So if you want to become a pro at this, and not just this, but whatever you do, you need to understand the competition and how you fit into that, how you can dismantle them and become the best. It's a little tricky because I asked 2 of my Grandmaster friends how they would describe improving at this point. Wu-Tang, One Trick Wu-Tang, the guy who will not give me top 1 in Marvin. It's okay though, it's okay, watch this season. But it's kind of difficult to really articulate how you can improve at this point because it's such minute, nuanced options and things that you want to do in your neutral to make it even better. Watching your replays and seeing how you perform against other top players, joining discords to scrim with other people who are also masters or grandmasters, perfecting how you perform on matchups you struggle the most with, all those things will add up to you becoming a beast of a player, the absolute GOAT, the best of the best, the tippity top. Now, some people have given me their specific problems that I'll be answering, such as dealing with passive players. The number one thing I notice about passive players, literally play as passive as them. Make them approach. Because a lot of times when they play passively, they don't know how to approach. So when they try to approach, it's like a baby trying to run for the first time. They don't know how to do it. Like, they're gonna suck. And that's when you can punish them accordingly. And now you play a bait and punish game while they're trying to be aggressive. Because you will literally, I kid you not, if they're being passive, don't move. Legit, don't move. Use the full stage, jump around, dodge, but do not go in. It will mess with their mental all the time. This works 100% guaranteed. If it doesn't work, come back to this video and mauled and scream at me. Because this, I've made Morty players crash out. I've made Arya players crash out. The people who camp the most, I've won these matchups because I've just been patient and I make them approach. So if you're playing against a passive player and you're struggling, literally play the same game they're playing and watch their whole game plan crumble. The next comment, ranked Powerpuff Girls too OP. This is very true, Burton is, and I agree a lot. I've noticed with Powerpuff Girls, they really like to do down attack a lot. They love down tilt. It's a great move, like I understand why. But if you know that though, you can predict by jumping above them and doing a down air to start your own combos. That, as well as the fact that a lot of them still don't really know what they're doing with the character because they just came out. You can use that to your advantage to win. That, and when you're getting hit by them, mix up your DI, which stands for directional influence. Right now they have a new combo going around that's like the new AIDS. Apparently everyone contracted it, everyone knows how to do it, but if you mix up your DI on it, it's gonna throw them off a lot because that seems to be the only thing that Powerpuff Girls know how to do. All 3 of them have bricks for brains. They don't think. And lastly, keeping composure. I saw a lot of people ask me about this. Keeping composure is the most important asset in anything you're doing, not just platform fighters, because the moment you lose your cool and you allow what's happening to disrupt your spirit, like how you feel inside, that's gonna throw you off 100% of the time. You will always lose the game, so don't do that. Instead, if you notice you're about to get flustered or overwhelmed, take a step back and just see why you're losing. First of all, breathe. Understand this is just Multiversus. You're playing a free-to-play game where Superman can kill at 35. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And then after you realize that, see why you're losing. Question yourself, what could I have done better there? Because a lot of times the mindset that gets you to crashing out is the fact that you're not looking at how you could have been better. You're just complaining about what happened to you. And that's a victim mentality mindset. You don't want that. You want to be progressive. You want to be an opportunist and see how you could have done better. So that helps me not crash out. Sometimes I still crash out, but the more you can implement that, the better it'll be for it. You want to be a person who is calm, not just staying composed. You want to be composed, because when you are composed, you naturally do things that composed people do, like checking in with themselves, seeing how they're feeling, making sure that they don't allow themselves to go into negative spaces. It's all about being. You want to be a composed person. This doesn't just apply to multiverses. I gave you core principles that I found to be the most effective. So if any of this information helped you at all, liking the video and subscribing is greatly appreciated. And if you want to check out the membership tiers, it's $1.99 and you can get coaching from me in any platform fighting game that you have trouble with, and I will do my best to help you. Hey, you also get these 4 emojis. No options? That's great when they're on burnout. Am I right or am I right, fellas? No options? Oh, you're dead?
Oh, look at him choke!